Hey there! So today we have another review, and this is a beer from Lagunitas. So this is Lagunitas Brown and Shugga. So there's a cool story behind this beer. So first off, there's an offshoot younger beer called Lagunitas Sucks, and they were unable to produce this beer one year seasonally, and so people complained, and so they produced another beer instead. And they're like, "Here, you guys think Lagunitas sucks? Here's Lagunitas Sucks," which turns out to be one of their best beers, a double IPA. So where did this beer come from? Well, it came from Gnarly Wine. So Gnarly Wine is their version of American style barley wine, and one day they messed up their brew, and from what I understand, or I would have guessed, that they messed up their mash temperatures. So they didn't quite hit the right temperatures to have the enzymes activated correctly, to have the enzymes break down the long chain sugars, to hit their proper efficiencies. So the yeast was not going to eat as much sugar to get the proper ABV. They were going to make a smaller beer. So what do? Well, you can add sugar, and yeast will eat that up. So this is obviously when Lagunitas was a lot smaller. So they went to the supermarket, bought a bunch of brown sugar, and they just dumped it into the brew. So you have more sugar, the yeast will eat that up, and oh wow, we magically got a beer that was 10%. We finally hit what we wanted just by dumping a bunch of sugar in there. And guess what? That doesn't quite work. They definitely hit 10% ABV, but they didn't quite hit the beer they wanted. And they actually enjoyed that beer. So they're like, oh, why don't we just brew this beer? So that's what this is. So this is a 10% American strong ale / American barley wine kind of thing. Let's dig into it. I can't imagine last time I had this beer. So beer comes in a deep amber color, wonderful clarity on the nose. Ooh. Ugh. It's sweet, it's hoppy, it's resiny, it's earthy, it smells dirty. There's caramel, there's biscuit, but there's just so much hoppiness in here. It's just not my kind of nose. It just reminds me of like big American hoppy sweet beers that sort of are a mess to me. So don't like this nose. Let's try it out. Okay, that's not bad. That is so dangerous. 10% is super hidden. The alcohol is really hidden on this beer. Wow. Earthy, resiny up front. It has that kind of dirty hop character. So it is bitter. I'm surprised it's only 51 IBU beer. I would have guessed at 10% ABV, this would have been like a 70, 80 IBU beer. So despite the IBUs, it is a decently bitter beer up front, but then residual sweetness comes up. There's caramel, there's biscuit, there's a nice kind of sugary, sticky sweetness without being cloying, and it rides on the palate. The bitterness hits up front and it lingers, and as that dies down, the sweetness sort of rides up on the palate. So it's a nice combination of when the bitterness hits and goes down and the sweetness sort of rises. And it really has a wonderful tension between bitterness and sweetness on the palate. This beer has a medium to medium plus mouthfeel. It has dangerous drinkability at 10%. There's something about the bitterness being so easy on this one, and then the beer being decently dry despite the middle sweetness that you get. I'm not saying I'm going to go out of my way to try to drink a lot of this, but it'll get you messed up. This will get you messed up. I mean, 10%, it just has a good amount of the bitterness and dryness to hide how boozy this is, and the sweetness sort of, counteracts how much bitterness there is. So everything's playing a part to sort of make you not realize how big this beer is. And it's actually not that. It's actually really nice. Again, I like to use the word tension between the bitterness and sweetness instead of simply calling it balanced, because it's not a balanced beer. It's big, it's hoppy, it's sweet. Nothing about this is balanced, but somehow the two notes in here sort of intertwine pretty well to play with the alcohol. And sort of speak to you to sort of not tell you that it's there, even though this is a 10% beer, and perception-wise, it's not really there unless you know about it, unless somebody tells you that it's there or you're an experienced drinker, because you can get really messed up on a couple bottles of this. So as for rating, let's go with an 84. 85, I'm surprised. It's not a beer that I'm going to seek out, but it has great tension again between the bitterness and sweetness, and it's actually a lot better than I expected. So until next time, guys, cheers. Later.